looked through the entire state budget. Wherever there was benefits going to illegal aliens, we identified them, and I put them in the bill that they would not be eligible. If you were here illegally, you couldn't receive those benefits. I mean, right then, driver's license, all that stuff, well, we identified. And at the time, it was before things had really come to the head, and so well, they were saying, well, Baker, what do we need all this for? And I couldn't get it through. But I passed that bill and was talking about that before it was where it is today. So the waste, fraud, and abuse that's going on. Part of that is...
You didn't talk about the Muslims. Do you have a statement on Muslims?
Okay, well, I wasn't finishing your first question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the 3 soldiers that were killed in Iraq were killed by Muslims, and the 11 that were injured were injured by Muslims. So the problem with Islam, the problem with Islam is not just a religion. See, we look through religion and government through Judeo-Christian views, where it's completely compatible. Like our form of government is compatible with Christianity and most religions. But Islam is a not only religious, but it's a religious, economic, and political belief value system. And so you cannot truly practice your Muslim religion in a representative democracy. You cannot truly practice it in a free market system. Islam bans interest from being paid. Sharia law violates much of the Bill of Rights when people apply Sharia law. So that's a concern. So I do think a Muslim person could come here and be a fully committed member, but they cannot practice the portion of the religion that violates our Constitution, that violates our laws, and so that is a concern. When we bring in any immigrant that comes into America, needs to be buying in to being an American. They need to buy in that, hey, I'm coming to America and I'm going to abide by the American Constitution. I'm going to abide by the Bill of Rights. It would be like if you owned a company and you have corporate values, company values, and you were hired and you were interviewing someone and they go, yeah, I don't agree with your corporate values. Yeah, I don't think I can accept that. Would you hire that person? Well, the answer is no, of course not. Yet we will allow people in this country that do not hold the same values or will not uphold the values once they become citizens. And so for that reason, I think they should be disregarded. So we should look at, once again, that's a national security issue. That is a national cohesion issue. We're only a melting pot when we hold common values. America's, our melting pot is so wonderful because as we brought in immigrants over the country, they've all adopted the common core American values. And then what made it cool was all the fun stuff that they brought, their rich traditions, and all that just brings a wealth of diversity, of restaurants and taste and style and fashion and music, and all that's great. Love all that diversity. But when it comes to a core value that we are a representative democracy, and that we've all agreed that we're going to abide by our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, that we all hold these similar values. That's the glue that holds us together, and all the other stuff is just the fun stuff, which I support. But we cannot allow people in this country that are not willing to adopt traditional American values. We will, and that includes a common language. We have to have a common language, and in any nation, it doesn't really matter. It's not like there's nothing special about the English language. The goal is that there has to be a common language, and ours just is English. So everyone needs to speak English. I mean, in the Bible, the Tower of Babel was, how did God stop that from being built? He had everyone speak different languages. So we need to ensure that continues. Was there anything else?
So your feelings about Doge is, it should be organized and it should
Oh, there should be,
changed.
oh yeah, there should be like almost just a separate independent Doge agency. They just report to the President of the United States, who is the executive officer. He is the CFO, CEO, he is the executive officer. Every federal agency is run by him and his appointees. He ought to have an independent Doge office, reports directly to him, given authority to go into any agency, including the military, I'm all for that, and root out the waste, fraud, and abuse.
And how are your feelings about handling the sanctuary cities issue when people are obviously treasonous in their statements?
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Well, we're electing people that don't value the law, they don't value our system.
Are we going to have to take
well, there has to be
steps?
There needs to be steps, and that includes stronger, clearer federal statutes and federal laws to address that. So, illegal immigration is a federal issue. It's not a state issue. So, therefore, the federal government, under the Constitution, would have the authority to address that.
And sanctuary cities are against the Constitution.
Right,
So
that's right.
why are they even allowing them?
They're allowed because we've allowed them to do that. We have
Social
to
media.
It's time to do something.
Well, we have to do something.
Yeah.
No question. And of course, we're making great efforts. I mean, I think we're nearly 2 or 3 illegal aliens have self-deported, and then about the same amount we've deported, and those are the worst of the worst. Those are that have now done additional crimes in this country, and so typically that should mean those are the easiest to find because we have records and fingerprints. So the president, in my opinion, is, as far as a priority of how to remove these illegals, I mean, he's probably doing the correct path. And then there's people that say, well, what about someone who's lived here for 30 years? You know, once we've gotten rid of all these criminals and we've gotten rid of, 10, 15 million illegals, and if we had someone that's lived a stellar life for 30 years, okay, maybe we'll talk about it then.
But why haven't they gotten citizenship if they've been here so long?
Yeah, well, there's a reason. But I can tell you, I'm not going to justify their behavior until we've already gotten rid of most of these illegals. And then we'll, on a case-by-case basis, we can take a look at that later.
Should that be the states taking a look at that, or?
Well, states have lots they can do. My bill, my anti-immigration, illegal immigration bill was a state bill. I mean, states are magnets. California is a magnet for illegal aliens. There's a reason they're going to California. Because they immediately sign up for welfare and driver's licenses and can vote.
And CDF life.
Right, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Did you bring some more signs?
I did. I got some.
Okay. So we're gonna take a couple minutes break, get you some coffee, a pastry, and then
Okay, thank you. I'll just sit.
come on in.
Please.
Seems a little awkward to stand in such a small room. So yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity. This has been a different sort of race. I've never been in a race that was a, hey, good morning, how are you?
I'm good.
All the way from Mount Dora.
Do y'all want the lights on, or are you good with it like this?
I'm good.
So,
Oh, there's
so
plenty of
a
seats.
9-week race. I've never been in one. Normally you have more time, generally you have a year or whatever, but this has been condensed, so it's been sort of exciting. I'd like to start out by saying, I'm running for the reasons that we probably all recognize, and that is Washington doesn't work like it ought to. And when it doesn't work, that means it's not serving us. It's not serving the nation, our state, our community. And I think I just have the experience and the qualifications to be able to address what I can. A lot of politicians will promise you they're going to do a lot of things, and we know that a single person can't do it all. But that doesn't mean you don't start the fight. That doesn't mean you don't push for what's right. And so my vision for my candidacy in America is that we're safer, we're secure, we're stronger. The border needs to be completed. It's not the border wall. It's not done yet. The Border Patrol needs to be completely funded, so we don't end up in the position that we've gotten ourselves in the past. You know, we're blessed that we have a president that appears to have solved the border problem, except he won't always be president. We'll have other presidents. So we have to make sure the wall's complete, the Border Patrol is finished, and fully funded, so that we can continue to secure those borders, both the north and in the south border. I support law enforcement at all levels. Obviously, I'll be supporting federal law enforcement as your congressman, but I believe that in this country we've seen a lack of respect and a lack of support for the men and women in blue, and I will be a congressman that will always stand up for our law enforcement. I support a strong military. I served 31 years, 9 months, and 8 days in the Florida Army National Guard, and I had a great National Guard career. How long do I have to speak, by the way? I'm sorry.
Till 11 o'clock.
Till 11. Oh. Well, I won't do that. But I had a great, I was 18, I was graduated Tavares High School, right here. When I was a senior, I raised my right hand, joined the Army National Guard as an enlisted soldier, and I had wonderful career. We spent 3 tours down in the Panama Canal Zone. That was our area of responsibility initially. And I sort of gained an understanding of what it takes to defend a very strategic infrastructure like the canal. And so I was keenly aware when the Chinese took over control of the ports on either end. And
It's a law.
that's not, it wasn't acceptable. And luckily it wasn't acceptable to the president either. He was able to make a case with Marco Rubio and others, and they were able to present a case to the Panamanians that the control of those ports was gained through bribery and other underhanded efforts. They submitted their evidence to the Panama government. Panama government took it to the Panama Supreme Court. And Supreme Court ruled in favor of the government and said, you're right, those contracts were fraudulently, criminally obtained. And as of about 4 weeks ago, there's no longer Chinese control of either port on either side. And that's a big victory. Big victory for national security. And I wouldn't quite have the keen understanding of that had I not served there so often. I was lucky enough to be able to serve in Ukraine for 2 NATO missions. And then just recently I was in Ukraine during the middle of the war with a missionary group. And I've traveled from one end to the other of Ukraine. I think probably within Congress there'd be very few people that'd be as qualified to speak about what's going on in Ukraine, politically, economically, and militarily. Matter of fact, upon my return, I wrote up a detailed report. I submitted to then Senator Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State, and also I submitted it to my Congressman Mike Waltz, who's now our UN ambassador, just to give him my thoughts and observations about what I saw and experienced in Ukraine. And it was just sort of neat that I gave it to them in those capacities, and now they are in key positions in our government. I hope it was somewhat beneficial. I knew Marco Rubio quite well. We were both freshmen in the Florida House together. So I've known Marco, we're friends. So it's exciting to see the job that he's doing. And it's nothing short of outstanding. And you can see with someone, when you finally have someone that's competent in that position, you can see the difference it makes. That you have someone that's willing to roll up their sleeves and do the good work that we require out of our Department of State. And it's been transformational. I mean, he has made a difference. And President Trump has secured more peace treaties than probably any other president, receiving no recognition for that, or very little, of course. So I'm very supportive of the foreign policy efforts that our nation is providing, and that's with an emphasis on what's in the national, the first question, the first answer should be the national interest. What is best for America? What is best for America, what's best for our security and our national interests? And it's always, when we do that, it's always a win-win. When you're such a great, powerful force as America, when we do things that are in our national interest, it's always a benefit to other countries. When America is strong and secure, the world is stronger and more secure. When we enter agreements with nations, those nations will benefit. But the function should always be, all right, is it in our interest? We're not a charity. We're not there to just dole out money. We're not there just to, just to do good works for good work's sake. We should be very focused on what is in the national interest of America. And so that's just part of what's safer, secure, and stronger in America. Our military needs to be the strongest in the world, the most capable, the most lethal. And with that means once again, our nation is safer. They call this time, since America ascended as a world power, the #1 world power since World War II, the world is now a safer world than it was before. People don't see it that way, but it is. It is. There are nations that no longer go to war with each other out of fear that the United States will step in. And that's good for those nations. That's good for everybody. And so a strong, secure military makes that happen. And so I will always support that. And of course I understand that waste occurs, and we'll talk about that some more too. Waste occurs in all government agencies, including our military. So we should always be aggressive to ensure that every dollar spent, no matter what the department is, even though U.S. military may be one of my favorites, they should have to go under the same scrutiny as any other agency. And once again, why is that important? Because that just makes us stronger and more secure. It's all, and we don't want the American people to ever lose confidence in our institutions. And you lose confidence, Americans lose confidence when they see money being wasted. You could have the best program, the best agency, and if people see that it's either run poorly or there's waste, fraud, and abuse, that compromises that mission. And maybe unnecessarily so. So we need to identify that. I believe in secure in our American energy independence. So I'm a big believer in oil, natural gas. I am a strong supporter of nuclear energy. I believe that nuclear energy will be the answer to providing our electric needs for the next 10,000 years. Easy. And in a very safe manner. And I think the technology is just getting better and better. I mean, we've been running, we've had nuclear power plants and submarines and aircraft carriers since the 1950s. So small plants that would run the equivalent of a small town, and we've had that since the 1950s. Yet we don't have a single town in America that's run by a small nuclear plant, and we could easily. And so I'm a big supporter of that. I'm okay with wind where the wind blows. I'm okay with solar where the sun shines. I can tell you, we call our state the Sunshine State, but we really don't have a lot of sunny days. So probably Arizona, Nevada, some of those places, solar probably works a lot better. And I'm okay as long as it makes some common sense and it works economically. The problem with solar is they generally push solar to the point that it's not economic. And but hey, as we improve batteries, which I hope we do, maybe solar will become better. Right now, it's just not a very good deal. Matter of fact, so energy companies in Florida have been aggressive at putting these solar farms out there, and they are absolutely terrible. They're terrible for the environment, and they are so much more costly. But because we regulate the power companies in the state, we say, okay, you can have a return on your investment plus a profit. Well, in that case, it really doesn't matter if they're engaging in something that's not profitable or not economic, because they can always recoup the cost plus a profit margin. So we just need to be much, much more mindful of how we invest in those alternative energy sources that are more costly. I believe that financial security in this country is severely threatened through deficit spending, which simply stating is that we spend more than we take in. and you get a deficit. And that deficit is then added to the national debt, and we're now hitting $40 trillion. $40 trillion, which that national debt, by the way, as a percentage of our GDP, it exceeds most other nations in the world. I would say America ought to probably have a surplus. We ought to be a nation that has money in the bank, not all kinds of debt. And that's not the type of debt that most of us have debt, but probably enjoying that's in the form of a mortgage. And quite frankly, you could sell your house if you want to and be out of debt tomorrow. But we have $40 trillion in debt, and that's more like your credit card. So there's no selling assets to pay off that $40 trillion. We just have to pay it off. And we will. But we are, and when I say we, I don't mean us. No one in this room is going to pay off that $40 trillion. It's going to get paid off one day, somehow, but who's going to pay it? It won't be us. It'll be our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. That's who we're saddling. We're spending the money not on them, but on us, right? Current government spending to benefit us, and we're giving our great-grandchildren the bill for it. I mean, I find that morally wrong. So I will do my best to try to find a mechanism that we can at least start the conversation how to address this fiscal insanity we're engaged in. When I was in the legislature, I used to brag, we all did, we bragged that we pass a balanced budget every year. And that was a true statement. Do you know why we pass a balanced budget every single year? Because we have a balanced budget amendment. The Florida Constitution says, legislators, you have to do it. Governor, you have to sign a balanced budget. So I can tell you, probably anything short of a federal balanced budget amendment, anything short of that, we might have some occasional success in restoring some fiscal discipline, but probably in the long term, it probably won't be as successful as it should be unless we have a balanced budget amendment. And in the meantime, which is difficult, Congress, they all say they want it, but they won't. All they have to do is pass it and then send it to the states for ratification. But in the meantime, I think we could start out by, at a minimum, starting to just cap funding at certain agencies at certain levels, and just say, hey, we're capping you. This is where you're at, and then we can let growth, hopefully economic growth, grow and grow our way out of the deficit spending. But that deficit spending, so it does two things. One is it saddles our great-grandchildren with trillions of dollars in debt. And the second thing, it is the source of our inflation. Inflation is not just simply arbitrarily prices rising. Inflation is when you flood the economy with excess dollars. So the federal government takes in $5 trillion worth of taxes, they spend $6 trillion. That extra trillion is the deficit, and so what they do, they issue treasury bills to cover that, and they spend that $1 trillion. That $1 trillion didn't exist before. It is now pushed out in the economy. So every year we're pushing out excess dollars, which inflates the currency, which devaluates the individual dollar, and hence we have inflation that we're having. We had this bout of inflation that was an easy example. The recent sort of jumping up of inflation was easy to see that under COVID, we flooded the economy with extra dollars. Maybe some of it was warranted. I'm not going to get into that argument, but we flooded the economy with dollars, and just immediately we jumped to 9% inflation. Well, it's just, you don't have to be an economist to see how that happened. And now we sort of pulled back from that type of spending, and the inflation's gone down. It's not low enough, in my opinion, yet. So we need to do that. So fiscal security is a very important part of what I'd like to do as your congressman. And then lastly, we just celebrated our 250th year of American independence. And we were successful in doing that, unlike other nations. No other nations have had a successful run of a representative democracy like America. We're the longest running democracy like that in the world. You talk about the French Revolution, well, they've probably had 5 dictatorships in France since then, and 5 different constitutions. So what have we done different? We've done one main thing different, and that is we did not treat the Constitution as merely words on a piece of paper. We did not treat the Bill of Rights as words on a piece of paper. We, the American people, gave that Constitution value. We gave those Bill of Rights value. We believed in them as a nation. And so that belief has been taught generation after generation. And that is how we were able to sustain it, because then we sent people to represent us that actually held those same beliefs. What is in danger now is not too long ago we had a president that described the Constitution as a flawed document. Well, what's the problem with that type of rhetoric? Does anyone have any? If I gave you a piece of paper, some sort of contract, and I said, well, Lou, it's flawed. What value would you place in that contract?
None.
None? Really? Well, of course not. That's right. So when the President of the United States tells his millions of supporters that the Constitution was a flawed document, that puts us in jeopardy. We need Americans to believe in that.
That's what his supporters wanted.
That's right.
His supporters.
Yeah, and then matter of fact, Alexis de Tocqueville, I don't know if you know that gentleman. He was a French philosopher, came to America, studied him, and he actually mentioned that the American people held their Constitution and Bill of Rights in religious reverence. That's how he described it. Religious reverence. We placed it up there. So one of my goals as your congressman is to always, at all times, defend the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and I will do that. And that is my platform. And so how do I fight? How do I maneuver? How do I represent you in Congress in an effective manner? And that's where I fall back on my experiences. I own the A.W. Petersen gun shop. I've owned it personally, my brother's and I, for 45 years. My father bought the business in 1949 from the Petersen family, who founded the business in 1886, which makes us the nation's oldest gun shop, 140 years old this year. Well, and that's a miracle. Talk about a miracle. A small shop. I mean, we probably have, during that time, anywhere from 5 to 15 employees in any given year. And somehow, through recession, for the last 140 years, through recessions, wars, deaths, probably family squabbles at some point, all the things that endanger small businesses, most of them last 5 years, not 140 years.
That's true.
We've been able, I mean, it's just the nature of the business. It's just some miracle. But I can tell you that I understand how difficult it is. Once again, you can't keep a business open for 45 years by accident. You have to be doing certain things. And some years we've done it better than others, Some years we're more profitable than others. But understanding the challenges that I've had running a small business, I brought that to Tallahassee when I was your state senator and state representative. And there'd be many times they'd talk about rules, taxes, regulations, and they'd be discussing them around a table, and there would always be some large corporation with their lobbyists, multinational corporation with their lobbyists, and they would say things like, the regulation would make all these requirements, and the lobbyists representing the companies, or maybe even a company representative, they go, well, we think our government compliance team can handle that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm the team. It's just me. And the other one, they'll go, well, our HR people can probably handle all that additional paperwork. And I'm thinking, well, I'm the HR team. And so I always looked at all those rules as someone that was having to run that business every day, write those paychecks. When we had if we had a slow week, slow day, slow week, slow month, it's like, all right, I'm having to scramble to make sure that we keep those doors open, everybody gets paid. And so I took that experience with me to Tallahassee. I'll take that with me. and to Washington. I'm a member of what's called the National Federation of Independent Businesses. It's a great small business organization. I work closely with them in Tallahassee. They also have a national presence. So there's some initiatives they've been working on that. So because I want to be both proactive. I was very proactive in the legislature, but also I want to defend. You have to be defensive and proactive at the same time. So I think I bring a skill set. I think we have allies to help me better represent small businesses in Congress. And then just owning a gun shop. Well, I realize that nowhere else in the entire world could I run a shop like that. Nowhere else in the whole world. There's no country that would allow me to sell the products I sell.
Yeah.
Right? We sell semi-automatic rifles. We sell suppressors, silencers. We sell handguns.
Oh, yeah.
Nowhere in the world other than America. And so why? So how am I able to do it? There's a little short amendment, Second Amendment, that hasn't changed. It hasn't changed once. There's been court decisions, but it's always, the Second Amendment is still the rock in which my business is founded. And so as a Christian, I believe that the Founding Fathers were just geniuses in everything they did. And so the protection of my ability to practice my faith, it rests alone in the Constitution. You know, we think, and right to freedom of speech, freedom of press, we sort of think, Americans make the mistake to think that that's the same everywhere in the world. They think, well, in Europe, they have to have the same rights that we do. No, they do not. They do not. They do not. They don't even come close to have the right of freedom of speech like we have. Routinely, probably in every European state, somebody's being arrested because they said something that offended the government, and they're arrested. England's right now is the worst. I think 12,000 folks were arrested for Facebook posts last year, merely because they offended someone. And that is if you don't have the right to speak your mind, to say what you believe, then government can hide behind that. Government can use that against its people. Only when we can speak our mind, gather together to assemble.
And it's tyranny.
It's tyranny without it. Tyranny without it. And so I will be a strong, relentless defender of both the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And in the Constitution, I want to amend the Constitution. The Founding Fathers designed that. I mean, the First Amendment needs to be a balanced, well, one of them, balanced budget amendment. I see that as extraordinarily important. And there's other, and yet I don't understand why they don't do it. And well, I do know why, because it constrains the power. It takes away power. Matter of fact, everything in D.C. is all about power. Power and money. Let me give you an example. We're familiar with how a bill becomes a law. You even teach kids, it's a good idea, and you give it to your representative, and he takes it, and he writes it up as a bill, and it gets submitted, and it goes through committees, and it goes through the House, it goes through the Senate, and they discuss it and amend it, and they send their good idea to the President of the United States, and he signs it. Well, that's not how it works. Right? So everything, hey folks, everything, we'll just use the U.S. House. I say everything. Most of the big bills all come out of the Speaker's office. The Speaker's office. So it's a big bill, and if it's a Republican Speaker, the big Republican bill comes out, and as a Republican member of Congress, you are told what? So Republican Speaker, Republican bill comes out of Congress. You're not there to debate the merits of that bill. You are there to vote for it if you're Republican. And if you're a Democrat, you're there to vote against it. All because it's top driven. And if the Democrat's in control, same thing. And it's a Democrat bill coming out of the Speaker or President's office, and Democrats are told to vote for it, Republicans vote against it. Well, so there's several problems with that. One is that it's all, you have to take what you get. So I would be an elected official, elected by you to represent you, and I'm not told to represent your voice, your opinion. I am told to vote for it because the Speaker of the House who controls all the power, the purse strings, the campaign financing. They say, Baker, you're going to vote for this. That's how they do it. And of course we know that's wrong. I always said that if you have the majority, then why do you fear a bill not working through the process? Why do you fear that? Let it work. If you have the majority, you have the majority. You can push that bill through the committees, and let me tell you the advantage. So as it goes through the committees, that means individual members, I may use this whole time up.
It's okay.
So as it goes through the committee, individual members can then amend the bill. And as soon as now they've had a voice, now I would have your voice. Run that bill through committee first. Give me an opportunity to amend it in a manner that I feel is best to represent the people that sent me there. And once you've taken my idea in, and it goes through a series of committees and everybody's having a say in it, they now have a say-so. They now have ownership of that bill. They have buy-in of that bill. It is probably, at the end, a much better product than one that's just coming from a lobbyist group or whatever, and just is thrown right down. You're told you can't amend it. You just have to vote for it. And so,
Who controls who's on the committees, the Speaker?
the Speaker of the House controls everything. That's right. And the Senate, the majority leader in the Senate, same thing. So merely there needs it. So that's an easy fix, to just let the process work like it's supposed to, but it requires the Speaker of the House giving up power. Giving up power. And nobody wants to do that. And so there's another, I'll just dwell on this one more issue that is a process problem. It's called germanity. So when you file a bill, everything within that bill should be germane to the subject. So if it's a transportation bill, it should just, and they have germanity rules. It's written there in carved in stone, must be germane. And
What happened to that?
And so literally probably 80–90% of the stuff that Congress should be working on should be bland, nonpartisan stuff. Like we'll just say a ports bill. That we have a bill that the United States, the marketplace is producing bigger ships now, right? Mm-hmm. Bigger ships, and you have to have ports to handle that. Well, occasionally they'll have this ports bill that'll be gives them the authority, these ports, the authority and the money to make improvements to the ports so we can bring in these bigger ships. This is not a Republican Democrat idea, but if you're a Republican, we'll talk about it. We'll say you're a Democrat Speaker of the House and you have a ports bill, and you say, well, you know, in this ports bill, we also need to take away people's right to keep and bear arms, and they put an assault weapons ban into a ports bill.
Not germane.
Well, what do you mean not germane? Aren't some of those guns imported in from another country that would go through our ports? Doesn't that make it germane?
We have to secure the port, so, you know.
So they will take what you and I would all understand to be germanity, and they will say, they'll come up with some convoluted reason why that is germane, and they have a rules chairman, and he'll go, nope, an assault weapons ban because some of those guns come from out of a country through our ports, therefore it's germane to a ports bill.
Does that go to party lines too? Like,
Oh, no, Republicans do the same thing.
yeah, that's what
No,
I
they do the
thought.
same thing. So if as a body, now why they do that is because it's convenient. It's efficient. It's very efficient when you just pile junk onto one bill and pass it through. That's very efficient. Well, yeah, they're not reading it. But so we absolutely, as silly as it is, as inconsequential as most people would think, I could never make this a campaign issue because you can't talk to people about it. but we need to adhere to germanity issues. And so therefore, a ports bill now becomes just an old-fashioned bill. And you could argue about which ports get this and what we ought to do, but you don't have to argue about whether there's an assault weapons ban or some other thing that's been added to it. Well, anyway, they do that. All the bills, many of the bills, violate the germanity, and it causes dissension with every bill. Every bill now is a big partisan battle. It just literally pits people against the parties against each other when it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. So, and then a budget. So a budget bill is probably the best example. They pile because you have to pass a budget pretty much. Even if it's a continuing resolution. I'll talk about that. That's by far the easiest mechanism of getting your stuff in and getting it passed. Is put it in a sort of a must-pass budget bill. Say for instance, they have the shutdown occasionally, and what's holding them up every year, and they're having with the budget bills. Well, if you know it's got to be passed, so you start putting stuff in, and so let me talk about the budget real quick. The budget should be broken down every year among subject areas, go through committees, discuss the individual merits of each agency and how much they need. But once again, they don't even attempt to do that hardly. They don't attempt to do it. They just take last year's budget and they just add their pet projects to it. And so how do you get people to vote how do you get members to vote for a really crummy budget? Well, you just come up to we'll say, I shouldn't use me, I'll use somebody else. Congressman Smith. And you say, Congressman Smith, we know that you really advocated, your district really needs this funding for this, and we think we can probably get you taken care of this year. And Congressman Smith goes, wow, that's awesome, that's awesome. And so they give Congressman Smith money for some project in his district, and he goes, all right, well, I guess I got to vote for the budget. Well, you do that 435 times, and next thing you know, you got all these people voting for a budget that's all full of junk.
They're cut.
Yeah, they're getting. I mean, and I'm not saying that's corrupt in the sense that they're putting money in somebody's pocket. But it is money for their district. They can brag about, and they can get reelected over. So we just need much more budget discipline. It's called regular order. That's where you break the budget up, you pass it in sections, you work it through the process. You just don't start at the old budget and just add money to it. You'll never get any sort of fiscal reform when you do it that way. There's no incentive to reform. It's just a poor manner of, and that's just process. So we need to really address that. I was appropriations chairman in both the House and the Senate. At the time, I felt I was getting the short straw, because in the Senate especially, I served during the Great Recession here in Florida. And so every year, as a budget chairman, I didn't get to pass out goodies for projects. It's, all right, Baker, you got to cut $1 billion again this year. I go, great. And every year I was a chairman, I had to cut. And I thought, what a terrible luck I had. But now, looking back, it's like, wow, what a blessing. Because now I probably have more experience than anyone actually drilling down into in a federal agent or state agency and knowing where to find the waste, fraud, and abuse. And they do a great job of hiding it, an extraordinary job of hiding it. And you really, it's difficult, but you have to do it. And so I have that budget experience. I do like transportation issues. I was a Senate chairman on transportation prior to becoming a budget chairman. And so I helped set transportation.
Can you clarify that you're talking about Florida positions that you're at?
Florida State, yeah, Florida State Senate. So let me disclaim it. If I say Senate or House, I'm talking about the Florida State Senate or House. And so with that came lots of experience on transportation issues. I can tell you many times I believe when people complain about growth right here in this community, they're many times they're complaining about traffic, because they can't get to church or school or work or wherever in a timely manner. And if we can keep the traffic flowing, there's less, that alleviates one of the greatest ills of development and growth. And so I believe that typically government underfunds transportation. Now the federal government does it as well, and they do it, in my opinion, in a couple ways. The primary way is they spend a lot of money on high-speed rail projects around the nation. They have sent California billions and billions and billions of high-speed rail dollars. And where is that high-speed rail?
Nowhere.
It is nowhere.
No.
All those billions should have been meant to improve our road systems across the nation. Now, some people think that, you know, and you can never have Florida, you know, Florida, we send our money in, we should get roughly the same amount back. It's not always going to be perfect because needs, aging infrastructure, like Wyoming will always get more money than they put in because there's hardly anybody, there's like 650,000 people in Wyoming, but they got interstate highways running through, and so they're always going to get more than they put in. So we just can't have a pure dollar for dollar allocation. But there obviously needs some common sense. And once again, if it was a thoughtful process in which a committee truly sat down in the budgeting process and discussed it, the members in that committee discussed, okay, what are our needs, you know, and they show, well, you know, and we'll say California. California, they have some bridges and through our interstates that are now, you know, 70 years old, and they're the oldest in our bridge inventory and need to be addressed. Even from Florida, I'd probably say, okay, yeah, sure enough, they're the oldest. Yeah, we probably need to go ahead and fix them this year. And that's what you get when you run government the way it's meant to be run and supposed to be run. It's just a thoughtful deliberation that causes members of both parties to work together. All the big issues, you know, all the political issues, yeah, that's the big fight. But when we're fighting over nothing, oh, that's just unnecessary. So, let me just real quickly, I'll sort of conclude with this. So as a small business owner, I was up there when they were proposing to make pool contractors and screen enclosure contractors have to hire engineers to build a pool. Have to have an engineer design a swimming pool, engineer design a screen enclosure, and they estimated that'd be $2,000 to $5,000 per pool, additional costs and screens. I go, well, do we have a problem with pools just collapsing and people drowning, our screen enclosures falling over and killing kids? And they go, well, no. I go, okay, well, no, I don't. Just come. How are you?
Fine.
Hey, Diane.
So I said, yeah, I had to file a bill to stop that. And of course, we haven't had a problem because there wasn't a problem to begin with. But some engineer lobbyists, they lost out. They lost out.
Yeah,
And then as a gun owner, when I was, so what is the best indicator of future behavior?
Past behavior.
Past behavior. So I share this stuff with you to know that when I went to Tallahassee, I worked on these issues. So I defended small businesses as a gun shop owner, a concealed weapon permit carrier, a firearms instructor. I mean, I sponsored many pro-gun bills to allow you to protect yourself in your home, to allow you to protect yourself in your car. These were major provisions that I fought for. When other states were confiscating legally owned firearms during natural disasters, I passed a bill in Florida that said, nope, you know, never will that happen in the state of Florida. So I filed those bills, I passed those bills, I was successful in moving them through. When Obama said that he was going to force people to buy a health care plan, Obamacare, I passed a constitutional amendment that said in Florida, we were going to place it in the Florida Constitution, that no Floridian should ever be forced to buy a health care plan that they don't want. She can't be forced to buy it. At the time, the liberal Supreme Court ruled that threw me off the ballot. And so then I headed up an effort to throw out two of the liberal Supreme Court justices, Labarga and Perry, but I got outspent 20-1, so they beat me.
Outspent. Yeah.
But yeah, outspent. But I beat them. I fought my fight, and there was a time just over and over whenever I saw an issue I would address it. When I came back from Iraq, I was elected to the Senate right after my return. And while I was there, I had, just in my battalion, 3 soldiers killed. I had 11 wounded in my company. And when I came back, I filed a bill that granted, for the wounded soldiers, their spouse and siblings could have educational and vocational grants so someone could take care of that family, you know, financially. For those soldiers that were killed in action that were Floridians, I said, the state of Florida, we're just going to provide for their education through the university level. So, and there was a movement around the country to ban junior ROTC programs and to ban recruiters from our high schools. I said, not in Florida, so I wrote the bill. And I pushed it through. So now in the state of Florida, every JROTC program, whether it's in high school or university, is protected by law. Universities, recruiters now have access to every student in the same manner that anyone else does. So no greater, just if we allow colleges to recruit kids, then we're going to allow recruiters to recruit kids. And that was my law. I found out one time that sexual offenders were literally having Medicaid paid for ED drugs. And so nobody wanted to tackle it because they were too embarrassed. Like, I don't even want to say what ED is. But, so I passed a bill. Said no. So now if you're a convicted sexual offender, not only can you not, government won't pay for it, it is illegal for you to possess it.
Good deal.
So time and time, whenever I saw a problem, I would actively, aggressively address that, and I was very successful in passing bills through the legislature and getting the governor to sign them. So I hope to take that whole skill set. So in conclusion, I'll let you ask questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
No, hang on. So in conclusion, just to sum it up, I am running on my record, a record of accomplishment. And I'll even, just one last thing, I was a Lake County property appraiser. I got elected to that office. I immediately cut the budget. And for 12 years, I was either the first or second lowest cost government property appraiser's office in the state of Florida. Yet I still invested in technology and improvements in the office, and I made a difference in that. Everywhere I've been, I've made a positive difference. And so the best proof of my performance in Congress will be based on what I've actually accomplished, what I've done, and with that, I'd love to have your vote, and also I'll take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts on Congress voting for their own little perks, their own raises, when the military has to fight and last a whole lot longer than they do to get 40% of their base pay?
No, that's right. So obviously Congress is very self-serving. One of the best examples, not just the pay, but they typically exempt themselves from the regulations they foist on everyone else.
Yeah.
Very common.
And they have a very good health insurance. Why can't everybody else have that?
Well, because we couldn't afford the health care they have. They have a
Why
Cadillac plan.
can't they at least give them what government employees?
Oh, no, that's right.
Or
No,
pay for
so
their own.
here's what I think.
Or pay for their own?
No, that's right. Congressmen should just have the same, essentially the same benefits that everyone else in the federal government has. Whatever that is, that's what they get. Nothing more, nothing less, just the same. Treat themselves the same. So.
And you're saying that we can't afford to give it to everybody?
We can't afford these Cadillac plans that they pay themselves.
My Blue Cross Blue Shield is not a Cadillac plan.
The congressional plan is,
Well,
for the congressmen. I'm
At
just
least give
saying.
them what we've got.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that's right. They should just have what we have.
Question. You've got some opponents that have been very outspoken about Muslims and or about all these benefit frauds. You haven't talked about either the H-1B type of frauds, and you haven't talked about Muslims. What are your stands on those and the prosecution of all these benefit frauds that have been discovered by a 23-year-old and that they do exist here in Florida too?
Oh, those are great questions. So well, we'll talk about illegal immigration. So when I was in the Senate, Florida Senate, I passed, or I didn't pass it, but I presented and wrote one of the strongest illegal immigration bills that had ever been presented. I mean, I was banning sanctuary cities before the term was even used.